What happens to everything you own when you die? There's no master list of your assets. And when you're gone, no one gets a map. Today, I walk through what really happens when no one knows where the assets are, why unclaimed property isn't the safety net people think it is, and how one overlooked detail can turn into a years long scavenger hunt for your family. I'm Jill Mastriani, an estate planning attorney and host of the Death Readiness Podcast. This past weekend, our foster puppy Boots and I headed to another adoption event, this one at Eastern Market in Detroit. Before the 10 a.m. start, I took her on a long walk to take the edge off. I adjusted her harness just right. I did all the things you do when you want something to go well, even if you know you can't control the outcome. We set up on a corner near the food trucks alongside about 10 other dogs from Detroit Dog Rescue, all of them hoping, well, all of us hoping, they'd find a home. Right next to us was Beanie, Boots' brother. The whole litter had winter clothes themed names: Boots, Beanie, Mittens, Socks. Beanie was nervous. He stayed tucked in his crate, surrounded by blankets and toys, not quite ready for the chaos of curious strangers. He got adopted almost immediately. And Boots? She sat right outside her crate, greeting everyone like a tiny, well-mannered ambassador. Honestly, I've never seen her behave better than she did during those 3 hours. And still, no adoption yet. But Boots and I are only one side of the equation. The other side is a potential family choosing her. Until both sides show up, the outcome doesn't happen. That's how estate planning works too. You can have the documents, you can name people to take care of it all, but if those people aren't willing, available, or prepared to step in, the plan doesn't work the way you think it will. Both sides matter. And with Boots, these adoption events are really hard for me. I knew from the beginning we were fostering. I knew keeping her as dog number 4 wasn't an option, but that hasn't stopped me from falling completely in love with her. In fact, she and I have been sleeping in the guest bedroom together, just trying to soak up as much time as we can together. The best I could do was prepare for Boots' adoption event. I updated her pet information sheet and printed copies to hand to anyone who showed interest. I emailed it to the adoption coordinators. I packed up her toys in a Trader Joe's paper bag so she'd have something familiar. I even brought her food to hand over to her new owners. Transitions are hard, but we can make them easier by preparing. Giving Boots away to her adoptive family is a small transition, but it can be instructive when thinking about much more difficult transitions, like being the person in charge when someone you love is incapacitated, or like serving as executor when someone dies. It's emotional, it's overwhelming, and it's a lot to carry, especially if you're figuring it out as you go. And that brings us to today's Tuesday triage question. I was on a call last week with the family of a man I'll call Mr. Jones, who recently died in Tennessee. I'm helping administer the estate, and the professional fiduciary serving as executor asked me to join the call to answer some legal questions. As you can probably imagine, emotions were high. At one point, one of the beneficiaries told the executor that he better find all of Mr. Jones's assets. The executor handled it well. He calmly said he would follow all leads. But that wasn't really the answer the beneficiary wanted. What she wanted was a guarantee. And there is no guarantee, because the person who knew the most about Mr. Jones's assets was Mr. Jones. And when he died, a lot of that knowledge likely died with him. There's a big misconception about what actually happens to your stuff when you die. And when I say stuff, I mean everything: your bank accounts, retirement accounts, life insurance policies, business interests, real estate. I think people imagine there's some kind of master list, like the fiduciary, the executor, the agent under a power of attorney, the administrator, can just type in a name and get a complete inventory of everything you own. That master list doesn't exist. So who figures it out? Whoever is in charge, the fiduciary. And one of the fiduciary's biggest jobs is simply figuring out what you have. So where do they even start? Usually with a tax return, because a tax return can at least point to assets that generated income, interest, dividends, and retirement distributions. It's not perfect, but it is a starting place. Now, tracking down assets isn't really my lane. I'm not a professional property finder. Once something is located, I step in and help determine what happens to it, based on the will or, if there isn't one, the rules of intestate succession. But in preparing for this episode, I talked to someone who is in the business of finding things. I've mentioned her before, Molly Locker with Sunny Care Services, and I'll include her information in the show notes. In the right circumstances, Molly serves as executor or administrator of Tennessee estates. And part of what she does is track down assets. I called Molly in preparation for this episode because I knew she uses a software called TrueState. That's TrueState, TRU State, to assist with locating assets during probate. I don't personally use TrueState, but they advertise real-time asset and liability data in a few clicks. That sounds pretty great, right? And here's a fun aside. I actually went to high school, Sayville High School on Long Island, with one of the co-founders of TrueState. We didn't know each other back then, but still, what a small world. Now, TrueState is built for professionals. It's not designed for someone trying to piece together an estate on their own. And Molly, who is a professional fiduciary, uses it regularly to help search for assets. But even a tool like that is only as good as the databases it has access to. It's not foolproof. Molly told me that when she can pull an employment history, and again, that's only as good as the underlying data, she'll go a step further. She'll reach out directly to HR departments at former employers to track down retirement accounts. And if the person was employed at the time of death, she'll also ask about life insurance. So now we're moving beyond databases and into people. And people are where things get interesting. Molly and I were remembering a case we worked on together involving the estate of a prominent national business person. I'll call him Mr. Hayes. We knew where he had last worked. We knew he had a 401k there, so this should have been straightforward. Molly found HR contacts on LinkedIn and reached out. They said they didn't know anything and couldn't help. I reached out to the company's chief people officer. That title gave me hope. I got no response. Then I reached out to the president of the company. Also, no response. So for my final attempt, I ghost wrote a letter to the president. But this time, it was signed by a male partner at my firm who was about twice my age. That got a response. I wasn't surprised. You're probably not either. And Molly made a really important point. Access to information is only as good as the willingness of the people to actually give it to you. So, did we eventually get what we needed? Yes. Did it take longer than it should have? Also, yes. And could Mr. Hayes have made this dramatically easier for everyone involved? Absolutely. He could have gotten death ready, because this is exactly the gap the death readiness playbook is designed to fill. It's not just a set of worksheets, although it does include those. It's also an educational guide to help you understand what you have, where it is, and what your family will actually need to know. I picked up the playbooks from the printer on Thursday and sent out the first shipment yesterday. If you want to make things easier for the people who will one day be in your shoes, or in Molly's shoes, you can check it out at deathreadiness.com/playbook. That's deathreadiness.com/playbook. But do you really need to do all this? What about unclaimed property? Unclaimed property is basically a last stop. It's where assets go when institutions can't locate an owner after a certain period of time, and the state holds on to them until someone claims them. Doesn't everything just end up in unclaimed property eventually? It would be nice if it worked that way, but it doesn't. I took a look at Michigan's Unclaimed Property Act, and every state has something similar. Generally, funds are considered unclaimed after the owner can't be located for a period of time, often around 3 years. For example, a life insurance payout may be considered abandoned if it goes unclaimed for more than 3 years after someone's death. But that assumes the life insurance company knows the person has died. And if the family doesn't even know the policy exists, how would they know to notify the company? You can start to see how this breaks down. This is how money gets lost. Let me give you a real-life example of what this looks like when no one is connecting the dots. My husband and I bought a house in Ferndale, Michigan in July of 2023. Since the day we moved in, we've been receiving mail from the financial services company Raymond James addressed to the house's prior owner. Not even the person we bought the house from, but the owner before him. And the envelope is addressed to him, followed by, in parentheses, deceased. So Raymond James appears to know he has died. Every time I get one of these letters, I write addressee unknown, return to sender, and send it back. I even went to the post office to try to stop it. They told me I'd need to go to a different branch, and honestly, that was a step too far for me. So the mail keeps coming. We're now renting out that house almost 3 years later, and this deceased individual is still receiving financial correspondence at that address. 3 years with every letter returned, and still nothing has changed. Based on the addressee, which includes the letters RIRA, which stands for rollover IRA, it appears that this person had an IRA at Raymond James. But if his family were just waiting for it to show up at unclaimed property, it's not there, at least not yet. And that's the point. Unclaimed property is not a system you want to rely on. It's slow, incomplete, and dependent on information that may never get where it needs to go. Earlier in this episode, I talked about packing up Boots' things, her food and her toys, before taking her to the adoption event. And that was emotionally hard for me. Likewise, I'm not saying end-of-life preparedness is easy. Getting death ready takes effort. It might even feel uncomfortable. But I knew that doing that work would make things easier for Boots. And that's what I want you to think about. Your people, your family, and your friends. Do you want to make things easier for them? Or are you okay with them trying to piece your life together while they're grieving on what is essentially the world's worst scavenger hunt? Because that's the alternative. If you want to make it easier, you can check out the Death Readiness Playbook at deathreadiness.com/playbook. That's deathreadiness.com/playbook. Thanks for listening today.